We are enough. We are
Right.
enough. We're enough. We are these glorious, beautiful, spectacular, crazy, messed up community of people called human beings. And yet we're enough. We can be parents. We can be good sons, good daughters, good brothers, good sisters, good partners, good husbands. We are enough.
You're listening to the Adventure Sports Podcast. Thanks for adventuring with us as we discover what incredible athletes and outdoor enthusiasts are doing all over the world. Now here's your host, Kurt Linville.
Hello, friends. Welcome to the Adventure Sports Podcast. It is my honor today to share some time with Phil Wall and for you to sit in and enjoy listening to this guy. He's an amazing man. We have a lot to talk about. I mean, he's done lots of big adventures, lots of big endurance events, a North Pole expedition, running the Yukon Ultra, the Welsh 3000, biking 500K in Malawi, and it goes on and on and on. But in addition to that, he's just had an adventurous life. He was a policeman in the UK, worked on the riot squad, worked for the Salvation Army in Russia, has so many stories about what happens when you live life a little bit larger. And I'm just really excited to learn more and to hear more and to visit with Phil Wall. Phil, welcome to the program.
Thank you. If you could see me properly, you'd be seeing an Englishman blush. Which doesn't happen often, to be honest. But thank you. Thank you. It's great. It's an absolute joy to be with you. Thank you for inviting me.
The listeners probably know who you are a little bit already because I've mentioned your name in relation to our Kilimanjaro trip that we're going to do. So Phil is the co-founder with his wife, Wendy, for We See Hope, which is the organization for which we are climbing Kilimanjaro to raise money to help the kids in Africa. And we're going to talk a little bit about that at the end. I didn't even mention that you're a life coach, that you're a motivational speaker. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Most people would say this is not the average life, right?
I get bored easily.
Well, it has led you into some interesting places. Why don't we start with where you grew up and what led you to be interested in even just a career as a police officer? I mean, that's adventurous. I mean, what led you to chase adventure in your own life?
I mean, it's a really great question. I don't think anyone's ever asked me that question before. I certainly wasn't that kind of child. You know, I was pretty risk averse. My parents actually worked for the Salvation Army, so we moved around quite a bit. So there's quite a lot of instability in our life as kids. But I don't ever really remember seeing myself as a child as someone adventurous. My mother tells me, she's long dead now, but bless her. But as a little boy, all I ever said I wanted to be was a policeman. And we had lived in Northern Ireland from 1968 to 1974, which, if you know your history, were very, very bad years in the province. And she felt it was something to do with that I'd been around that awful violence and tragedy in Northern Ireland. And she said that somehow in my head as a child, I wanted to try and be part of the answer to that. So I don't really recall that. I do remember, though, that careers evenings were largely a waste of time, although I did also apply to join the Welsh Guards, the military. And I ended up choosing the police because they had a nicer gym. That's how shallow I am. But when you're 16, hey, you know, it's good. So I think that probably began for me as I look back. I'm trying to reflect now as you ask the question. I think I embraced the concept of risk much more highly. I wasn't ever good at any one sport, apart from one sport I started when I was a policeman, when I was 16, which is I learned to box. And I ended up being pretty good at that. So I started boxing when I was 16, worked hard at that, got good at that, was largely, you know, my kind of self-identity was very much wrapped up in that, you know, within the little sphere, the little goldfish bowl of the police and the military and the amateur scene in the UK. I did reasonably well. And that, I think, brought a confidence to me. I mean, the guy who was my coach, a guy called John Banham, he'd been an Olympic boxer. He really invested in me. And I think for the first time in my life, I saw the power of what a coach, a mentor, can do in the life of someone who genuinely believed in me in a way I didn't believe in myself. And so I think those days, being in that kind of environment, building confidence, learning some skills that I felt confident in, I think really for the first time in my life, I had any sense of self-belief or confidence. And I just remember one of my officers at the training college there, the police training, just commenting to me that I appeared to come across very confident. Now, if you just said to me, do you feel confident? You know, I said no. But if you say, well, do you back yourself to get this done or get that done? The answer would have been yes. And I think something happened to me in two things. Firstly, that experience, working with that mentor, learning from him, I learned to back myself. And as I think about it, and I try to, obviously, because of the job I do and all the coaching courses and therapy courses and sessions I've been on, I've had to do lots of self inner work kind of thing. I actually do. And I hope that doesn't sound arrogant, but I just find myself in most situations, I've learned to back myself. So that means that when it comes to things like adventure, when I think about it, I mean, maybe just because I'm too dumb to think about how dangerous some of these things are, I thought, I got this. So there was two things really. Firstly, that, and then when I was nearly 20 years of age, I had a faith encounter with Jesus. I had this kind of life conversion experience whereby suddenly my life made sense on a purposeful, relational, kind of cosmic level. And I found a deep, deep purpose in living out what it would mean to be a follower of Jesus. And I think in those 3 or 4 years and kind of mid-teens to late teens, those two things I think were very profound in me becoming the person I've become in lots of ways. I hope that makes sense as I reflect on it, because I've not really thought about it in the way you asked that question before. And that has opened up a whole raft of possibilities and opportunities for me over the years. Being willing to and wanting to say yes to things that might appear risky in one form or another.
I want to go back to the backing yourself. I don't know that people know how to do that. And I'll be candid, I've interviewed hundreds of guests for the Adventure Sports podcast, if not more. And one of the questions I ask often is why? Why do you do the things you do? And some people have been really candid and they just said, well, I wanted to be enough. I felt like I had to do something big so I could believe that I was capable or worth it. And I always feel like, wow. But then quite often they come around to say, and then I found out that that's not what this is about. They grew beyond that initial wanting. But when you say back yourself, I think a lot of people don't really know how to do that. How do people do that? How do you get behind yourself and say, no, I'm going to do what it takes and I'm going to be all I can be? And
well, I think it's more about being than it is about doing, if that doesn't sound too woolly. And I think this philosophically, I think this kind of psychologically, and I think this theologically. We are enough. We are enough. Like his measurement, who's measuring? We are enough. We are these glorious, beautiful, spectacular, crazy, messed up community of people called human beings. And yet we're enough. We can be parents. We can be good sons, good daughters, good brothers, good sisters, good partners, good husbands, wives, whatever. We are enough. Can we be perfect? Nope. But are we enough? I mean, someone asked me once on another podcast a few years ago, actually, we were talking about being a dad. You think you're a great dad? I said, I don't think I'm a great dad. But I think I was a good enough dad. I thought I was good enough. Because the benchmark isn't perfect. I mean, I think perfectionism is for the birds, right? It's just silly. Maybe my standards are too low, forgive me. No, I just think there's something glorious and I've seen this in Africa. I know we'll get onto Africa at some point, but I've seen some kids in environments where every single thing that could possibly be against them is against them. And yet they back themselves, they go for it, and they achieve the most remarkable things. And yet every single thing that you could think of that would be a hindrance and a challenge is theirs. And yet they persevere. So I think, so you asked the question, how do people? I actually think it's about two things, I think. It's about a choice. It's about belief. I choose to believe. And I wait for my emotions to carry up. I think one of the great challenges for us, particularly in the modern day, is we allow our emotions to set the tone, to set the bar. We allow our emotions to go. We allow your emotions to go. You're never getting anything done, right? Because our emotions are like this, right? They go all over the place.
Right.
And I think it begins firstly with a choice. I choose to back myself. Yeah, I don't know what that's going to mean. I don't know if I'm going to succeed, but I'm going to make that choice. That out of the choice of back myself, not back myself, I'm going to choose to back myself. And then we execute. We give it a go. And sometimes we make it and sometimes we do, but it doesn't matter. You just keep going, you go again. When you fail, you pick yourself up, you dust yourself off, you go again. Otherwise, how are we ever going to get anything done if we don't do it?
It's well said. I love that. Pick yourself, dust yourself off, go again. Some people would say, well, you're just cocky. You just think you can do anything. So what's the difference between being cocky and backing yourself?
If they did say that, they wouldn't be the first. Is it cockiness? Probably sometimes it is. I probably stand more cocksure than I am because I'm a speaker, I'm a communicator, and I use language in a certain way. And in all honesty, I'm probably more insecure around many of these things than I might sound. But feeling insecure at times and backing away from something are two completely different things. They're completely different. And I think one of the lessons I've learned, and certainly I hope I've done this as a father, I've tried to communicate this, is that you just keep going. You just keep going. It gets tough. It gets hard. You fall down. You make a mistake. You fail. You dust yourself off. You go again. If it's worth it, you just keep going. You just keep going.
That's a very common theme on our podcast, Phil, because people try to do very, very big physical events. And they find out that if they just keep going, they can do things they never dreamed they could. But that's not just about physical prowess or physically running the ultramarathon. It's also about just keep going in life when life is really hard, when emotionally you're drained, you've got nothing left in the tank, right? No gas, but you have to keep going. Can you tell us about a time in your life when you experienced that?
Oh, buddy, multiple times. And a couple of times I have given up. I don't want to give the impression I've never given up. That's not true. A couple of times I have. Look back at particularly one of the events that I didn't complete. I'm thinking, could I have completed that? Could I have dug
we always wonder.
Deeper? Could I have dug a bit deeper? Maybe I could have done. So again, I am not someone who hasn't failed. I'm just someone who doesn't give up easily and hasn't often given up. And I think there are multiple times when we talk about the endurance events where I failed and I've not achieved what I wanted to achieve. But when I look back on it, well, I started. And that, for many of these events, that's the bar, right? You started, you're in there.
Right.
You've put yourself in a place whereby you might fail. And I think for lots of people, they avoid adventure. They avoid challenge because what they fear is the concept of failure. I don't fear failure. I genuinely don't feel failure. I've failed many times. I don't fear failure. Philosophically, I see it as a great opportunity to learn. I see it as an opportunity to go again, to give it another shot. And I think it's just part of life. I mean, we're never going to get anything done in life, in any sphere of life, be it as in our families, in our endeavors, our work, our philanthropy, whatever. We're never going to get anything like if actually the door we won't walk through is the possibility of failure. What will we get done if we're not willing to walk through that door? I don't think I lack courage, but I don't see myself a particularly brave man. But I don't lack the ability to walk through a door that I might fail through. I genuinely don't fear failure. I don't want to fail. I get insecure about failing. I fear my self-esteem at times. I was talking to a friend about it last night, if I can be candid. If I was listening to a podcast on pride, and I realized that actually as I thought about our work here in the US and what we're trying to do is raise, a few million bucks for the work in Africa. If we go home to the UK in a few years' time and I have failed, as I thought about it, the thing that was hurting me the most was not that I'd failed gorgeous, precious, vulnerable little ones in Africa, but the Phil Wall would have been seen to be a failure. And as I thought about that, I was embarrassed. Because I'm better than that.
I have to laugh. I have to laugh, Phil, because I know the tally. You've already impacted positively 850,000 lives in Africa. 850,000. And then to say, well, I was a failure.
A fair point. But hey, I'm part of a team of people, right? And our bit is to tell stories, inspire, do our best to do that, raise money, give money. That's our job. And I think, and this way it's all about a great team. It's a great team that's delivered those kind of numbers. It's a great team in the UK and Africa that have delivered those numbers, not me. We're privileged to be involved and as the founders. I think I think you raise a really important point around the failure piece there, because I do think it's the fear of failure rather than fear of the thing that most often stands in people's way. And sure. I often talk with clients. It's, but what if I fail? But what? I say, well, so what? I start again, give it another go. And I understand fear, and I've been frightened on numerous occasions in my life, really fearful. I understand fear. I understand shame and embarrassment of failing. But the idea of not doing something worthwhile because I might fail I just think that's completely alien to me.
Yeah.
And yet I so often see it as a hindrance to people I work with as a coach.
I think part of maturing as a human is realizing that we have a comfort zone, and think of that as a circle around yourself. And if you only operate in that comfort zone, that's as big as you ever get.
Yeah.
And if you're willing to go beyond that comfort zone, it's scary because now you're facing the unknown, and everyone fears the unknown. It's not comfortable anymore. But when you do that, and whether you succeed or fail, you have a life experience that expands your comfort zone, and it gets you to a place where you're more effective, and you can try again. I don't know if that's, maybe that sounds a little bit too trite, but I think it's very, very true.
I think sometimes, I've done quite a lot of interviews over the years at different times, and I think sometimes some of these phrases might sound a little bit trite, but they seem to try and sound trite to those that haven't tried anything.
Yeah.
For those of us that are kind of got the scar, the fact is we're going, no, actually, that's pretty inspiring. There's one of my favorite phrases that I picked up years ago, and I used at the end of a talk I did. I was very privileged to present to our Prime Minister at the time and a bunch of people in Downing Street. And the quote says, some men dream at night of changing the world, others stay awake and do it. Some men dream at night of changing the world. Others, I love that. I absolutely love that.
Yes.
Try, maybe, superficial, maybe. I just love that because it's true. It's just true. Talk to anybody who's got anything of substance done in the world. They know what sleeplessness is. They know what the anxiety at 3:30 in the morning is. They know what those late night chills. They know exactly what that is.
Right.
That's why it's true.
Oh, it's amazing. It runs parallel to another phrase that might be overused, but why do we criticize the man in the ring when we're not in the ring? And you were a boxer, so I mean that one's got to ring true for you.
Yeah. I think that was a Roosevelt quote, isn't it? Which is
yes.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Chris. You certainly seem to be this kind of guy. We've had some good conversation together, but I'd much rather be that guy bloodied in the ring who gave it everything he's got than someone who didn't get in the ring.
Well, and you have stepped into the ring over and over and over again in your life, and maybe that is the spirit of adventure. I'm not sure, but
you said something that I was going to say something. You said something earlier that was really interesting. You said, "Is it cockiness?" Actually, something that's been really important to me as I've thought about the adventures I've been on is who you're journeying with. Like who you're journeying with, who's with you, who's got your back, who's carrying you when you need carrying, who's slapping you down when you need slapping down. I mean, and I am blessed beyond compare. There's a number of men in my life, friends, brothers. I give my life for them. I've been greatly for you. I've got 6, 7, 8 brothers that I go, I'll go to the wall for these guys, and they do the same for me and have been the same for me. So I'm cocky. I went through some mental health challenges in 2010 and suffered clinical depression for a while. The great gift my brothers to me was they wouldn't let me hide. They hunted me down. When I was wanting to wallow in the corner somewhere and just have my own little pity party and wallow in what I was wallowing in, they hunted me down, and I'm so thankful for that. So I think a part of the confidence that we can glean, whatever it is we're trying to do, particularly, in adventure sports and philanthropy and all that kind of stuff, is when you got brothers and sisters at your side that you know and you trust and you've been to the wall with them, that breeds a confidence, which is above and beyond you. It's not about you. It's about the collective. It's about what we can get done. And that has, I think, I wouldn't want to have this conversation without mentioning that. Just my brothers that I've been privileged to journey with through, many of those adventures. That's been of profound importance and helped carry me through at times, those challenging days.
Bill, I have to make a point for the listeners right now because I just feel like it's so important. When we get really, really down, you mentioned depression, clinical depression. We tend to isolate, which is often the opposite of what would be most beneficial. And many people don't have a big network. They don't have a big community, and these days perhaps even more because of the black screens that we stare at all day long. It's not real community, right? It's just distraction. And I want to point out that when you get out and do things with a team, that's how community is built. It's the people you suffer with side by side who become your brothers. And that's one of the beauties of adventure sports. It's one of the beauties of taking on any major goal with a team. And you need to make sure that you're having those connections, that iron sharpens iron and you can be together.
100%.
It's so important. And if you feel isolated out there, find something you love to do and make yourself go start. Just start. But make yourself start with some sort of a group who loves it too.
That's great. That's wise counsel. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip, reels and stuff on things. This just brought joy to my heart. It was a clip of the Dalai Lama talking to a bunch of 20-somethings from around the world. So he's sitting in his, I don't know what it is, a throne, whatever it is, some seat he was sitting in. And then all these young people are sitting there. And then there's a microphone, which people are queuing up to ask questions. And they all look like delightful middle-class kid, young people in their 20s they're not kids either in their 20s, they're grown men and women, and they're all sitting around there. And then this delightful young man is an American. he came up to me, he said, "May I ask a question?" He said, "Obviously, he said, many young people today, they struggle with self-esteem, they struggle with self-worth, they struggle with anxiety and depression." He said, what word of encouragement and comfort would you bring to them? And, I'm waiting for this great pastoral moment to evolve.
It's the Dalai Lama, after all.
The Dalai Lama paused, looked him right in the eye, said, altruism.
Yes.
Altruism. Give yourself away. You want to change your mental health? Give yourself away. You think the life of yogi, wasn't really what I was expecting.
What do we do with that?
I think there's just something very, very powerful in that. I would say I would agree 100% with what you said. You find something you're passionate about, find a group of people, whether it be an adventure or not, or, of course,
right,
go give yourself away.
Yes.
Go give yourself away, because you always receive way, way more than you ever give away.
It's crazy how easy it is to put off shopping for the holidays. I'm guilty because shopping's not really my thing. That's why I'm glad that our sponsor today, Uncommon Goods, takes the stress out of gifting with thousands of unique, high-quality finds that you won't see anywhere else. So I was just on their website. There's an SUV table that sits on the tire and props out and then against the tire, so it makes an instant table wherever you are, camping or maybe just stopping to sit and enjoy the view. Instant table, pretty cool. I'd never seen anything like that before. Uncommon Goods has something for everyone. It's not just about four-wheel drive enthusiasts, obviously. They have categories for moms and dads and kids and teens, book lovers, history buffs, football fans, foodies, mixologists, avid gardeners. You'll find thousands of new gift ideas that you won't find anywhere else. That's going to help me this year. Now, Uncommon Goods supports artists and small independent businesses. They offer many handcrafted products. They're made in small batches. And with every purchase, I love this, they give back $1 to a nonprofit partner of your choice, which means they have actually donated more than $3.1 million to date. So don't wait. Cross those names off your list before the rush. To get 15% off your next gift, go to uncommongoods.com/ASP. That's uncommongoods.com/ASP for 15% off. Uncommon Goods. We're all out of the ordinary. Hey friends, here at the Adventure Sports Podcast, health is really a priority. That's part of the reason why for over 10 years we've been encouraging people to get out there and have some fun, because when we become more active, it makes us healthier. Our focus on health is one of the reasons that I'm excited about today's sponsor, True Diagnostic. Did you know that your calendar age doesn't always match how old your body truly is? Your biological age, the age of your cells and organs, is actually the number one predictor of your risk for serious diseases like heart disease, cancer, dementia, and more. That's why learning your biological age can be truly life-changing, and that's exactly what the True Age test from True Diagnostic helps you do. It's a simple at-home test. You just prick your finger and then use the provided packaging and a prepaid envelope to send the sample in for testing. No doctor's visits required, no labs, but you'll get great information that can help you to be healthier and understand how you're doing with your own health habits. Now, I always joke that I'm 23 years old. You've heard me say that forever. Obviously, I'm quite a bit older than that, but I'm curious to find out what my biological age is. It's kind of eye-opening when you learn that your biological age, if it's just 5 years older than your actual age, your risk for major diseases can go up by 30 to 50%. That's kind of a wake-up call. But due to epigenetics, and this is the part that really inspires me, up to 90% of biological aging is driven by lifestyle. That means the way that we eat, move, sleep, manage stress, all these things play massive roles in how fast or slow our bodies age. That aligns with the Adventure Sports Podcast so much. So I'm taking the test. I'm excited to find out the results. And in addition to my biological age, True Diagnostic also provides a personalized report that's full of science-backed steps that we can all take to slow down aging and improve our health over time. If you care about protecting your health and want to find out what your real age is, head over to TrueDiagnostic.com and use my code ASP to get 20% off your entire order or subscription. That's TrueDiagnostic.com. Use ASP at checkout to get 20% off. your future self will thank you. You know, it breaks the laws of physics, Phil.
It does, buddy.
The more you love, the more love you have to give. If you burn gas out of your tank, you would think your tank would get empty, but it's not that way when you're giving yourself away.
As we know, energy is infinite, right? We can have as much energy as we need. We just need to replenish it and restore it. It's utterly infinite. There is zero limit on the amount of energy that I can get access to, provided I replenish.
Yes.
And I think, the laws of thermodynamics and the like, they don't apply to things like causality and purpose. Yes. Certainly you can burn out.
Yes.
And hey, we'd rather burn out, than rust out, right? But yes, we can burn out. So we need to be wise and we need to be careful and sensible when it comes to giving ourselves away. But I just think there is something so powerful and redemptive and life-giving when we give ourselves away to others. There's just something profound about that.
I think you're 100% right, but I'm going to shift gears.
Yes, sir.
Because that was beautiful. So everyone bookmark that one right there. The North Pole. There's a rather abrupt segue for you, but you decide to do the North Pole. So here we're talking about all the ways that we live a life and do the things, and then why the North Pole? What happened?
Well, a very dear friend of mine, his name is Alan Chambers, MBE. He is an ex-Royal Marine Commando in the British military. And he led the first British team to walk unassisted to the North Pole. That is, they dragged everything. They had no assist. They had no assist. They didn't have anything dropped in. They just dragged everything. He's the first person ever to have done that in the history of the UK. So he had done that, and that's what he'd been honoured by the Queen for with his MBE. And we were introduced by a friend, and we got to know each other, enjoyed each other's company. And we were sitting at a rugby match, England versus France. I can even remember it was in the early 2000s. And we just had this idea: what would happen? Because, of course, he had this experience now. What could we do? What could we do if we got together a group of guys and girls, high performers, and enabled them to travel a journey to the North Pole? I mean, we called it at the time, and I was just early on in my kind of coaching career, a kind of leadership rite of passage. A rite of passage is this liminal experience you go through where you're in this space for a season. You're not what you were, nor yet are you what you're going to become. So you're in this liminal space. Many traditional cultures have these kind of rites of passage process. We call this a kind of leadership rite of passage. And it was a 12-day expedition, 3 days preparation in Spitsbergen, which is the archipelago above Greenland, with all the polar bears. We didn't see any, but there are lots and lots of them up there. And then you fly, you get in a jet, and you fly to a runway that the people that manage it, which is the Russian community, they manage they build a camp once a year on the ice when it's warm enough to survive, but not too warm so everything to melt. And they build a runway. Apparently they used to put 2 bulldozers on there each year, and then just let them sink to the bottom at the end of each season. And they would build a runway. So you come in and you're in a proper big boy jet, and you land on the ice cube known as the North Pole, as the polar ice cap. And then we walked the last degree, 89 to 90 degrees. So we had this idea: what if we could take a bunch of leaders to go and do this, have this kind of almost out of body experience, if you like, where you're in an environment where there is nothing around you other than white out snow, where all of those things that you normally have access to help you succeed are not available to you, where the conditions are really, really harsh, but you're going to be in a team with 4 others, and we're going to walk this last degree to the North Pole. So it's 89 to 90 degrees.
So what is that distance?
Well, it was circa about 100 miles. The problem is, of course, you're on an ice cube, right?
Yeah.
So the ice cube is affected by the currents. What we found is, over that first day and a bit, we just discovered that we would walk 6-8 miles a day, and then we'd pitch camp, melt some ice, cook some food, eat some food, go to sleep for 5-6 hours and get up. But then we realized that we drifted back 4 or 5 miles. So it took us half the next day to get back to where we finished the night before, every day. That was so destroying. And I experienced there this, which maybe this is the cockiness thing or stupidity or just dumb, where until I got to Spitsbergen, I'd never had a ski on my foot, ever, not once. And I kept falling over, and often I would walk where others were skiing, but that was just with my quads were just burning because you're dropping kind of 2 foot each time into the snow. So that was probably a bit dumb, but I figured it out in the end, and we basically cross-country skied with skins on the thing. So that was the adventure, and then we had 9 days on the ice. It was amazing. I mean, there are so many stories around this, so I don't know if you want to explore it, but just we had this experience where we kept drifting back, so we had to do longer days, and then we we basically had 24 hours left. We had about 13 miles to walk and going, well, we've never done 13 miles. So how are we going to get 13 miles done because of the drift?
Right.
So, and we came across what they call open lead. An open lead is basically where the ice has opened up. So there's ice, 2-mile drop to the bottom of the ocean, ice. It's just an open water thing.
Right.
So the professional adventurers, and we just, apart from the 3 guides, Alan and his 2 colleagues, Anne and Charlie, if they'd had their suits with them, they'd have swum across. We won't go and swim. Definitely not going swimming. So basically, the guys said, look, you guys pitch camp. We'll go left and right and see if we can find a bridge. Anyway, they came back a couple of hours later and they said, well, there's bad news and good news. We said, well, okay, what's the bad news? He said, well, the bad news is there's no bridge. Okay. I said, what's the good news? He said, well, the good news is it looks like the opposite bank has started to move towards us. And over the next 4 or 5 hours, we saw millions and millions of tons of polar pack ice move in our direction. We went to bed, got up, it then had joined up, we walked across it and made the North Pole later that day. What is really interesting about that experience, and because the ice goes from an inch thick to a mile thick, I mean, it's ridiculous. The thing that had been our greatest enemy on that trip was the tidal drift, was pushing against us. The thing that on the last day saved us was the tidal drift, because it pushed the opposite bank towards us, which meant we could walk across and make the pole later that day. Remarkable experience. Absolutely remarkable.
So many things come to mind with that, but one of them is you didn't know how to ski, so you decided to ski to the North Pole. Now, I just want to point this out.
That's where dumb or stupid. I mean, my buddy Alan, who I trust implicitly, if you could ever get one here, I'll ask him next time I speak to him. He's legend. I mean, he's skied across Greenland. He's been to the North Pole 10, 12 times. I mean, South Pole 3, 4 times. The guy's a ledge. I mean, he's the proper real deal. He's like, say, hey, let's talk to a modern day adventurer. He is your iconic adventure. He's the real deal. Yes, he's giving, look, you'll figure it out, Phil, so don't worry. So I didn't. And I probably should have. A wiser man would have, done a bit of practice beforehand. But for whatever reason, I thought I'll figure it out when I get there.
The point I want to make, okay, it's twofold. One is, it is good to know what you're doing before you start to do something that big. But it's the other thing we were talking about earlier, the willingness to try things, to step outside of your comfort zone and say, well, I'm going to either succeed or fail, but I'm going to try. And you did.
Yep. Basically, everything up until the event was kind of my responsibility to sell the opportunities in the space. It was 15 grand a pop, et cetera, et cetera. Once we got into the technical stuff, that was then Alan's and Anne's, and that was all there.
Right.
I know nothing. I was just trying to learn how to stand up. Yeah, I look back at that as probably not the wisest decision, not least of which is if I'd have broken my ankle or done something, then suddenly other people are vulnerable because I'm injured. It worked out. Yeah, it worked out. It did work out, and it was amazing. I see it as one of the greatest privileges of my life to have been on that adventure with those men and those women. It was remarkable.
You shared a story about feeling the ice shifting while you were trying to sleep one night. I've heard this one before. Would you share parts of that with the audience? Yeah,
so obviously you're lying on sheets of ice, and we're in there one night, and we just heard this going, and suddenly and I don't know how far away, it felt like it was about 6 inches. The slot that we're on dropped. Just dropped.
Man.
So I was pooping my pants. We were out of that tent so quickly. Anyway, then it all calmed down. It was all fine. There was nothing wrong. There was no water or anything. But something, with all that pressure and everything, something shifted. But I tell you what, buddy, that was a genuinely existential moment of fear. Thinking, my life, I'm about to go through the ice and I'm going to drown. And yeah, it was bizarre. But I mean, you look back now and you laugh. But at the time, we weren't laughing. It was a tad scary, as we the English would say.
Tad, the underspoken. That had to shift you a little bit. When you experience that kind of fear for just a moment, we learned from it somehow. What did you learn?
What did I learn? I learned that ice can shift, but it doesn't mean you're dead. I learned that. I think there was a moment. I had a real vulnerable moment one night where I was thinking, this is my gig, right? It's mine, Alan. This was our event. And I was lying in the freezing cold in this sleeping bag. And we filled our drinking flasks up at night with hot water as a kind of hot water bottle. So I was trying to stay warm. And I don't know what it was, whether I was really tired from all the walking rather than skiing, whatever. But I remember thinking to myself, how am I going to get off this ice? And I must have spent 4 or 5 minutes thinking, and I shook my head thinking, what are you on about, man? You're part of the team here. You're part of the leadership team. Like, what do you mean get off the ice? This is part of your responsibility. Yes. But I just found myself consumed with anxiety and fear and just the harshness of the environment. I just needed to, forgive the I just needed to man up. But I found myself really quite vulnerable in my own little headspace in that sleeping bag, thinking, how am I going to get out of here? How am I going to do this? And again, not proud of that, but it was true. It was real. And then managed to move beyond that a little while later. But it was an interesting moment. From someone who kind of prides himself as, I won't give up, I don't give up, I found myself in an environment where I'm responsible in one sense, though Alan clearly was the boss man on the ice. I found myself quite vulnerable, thinking, I'm not sure I can do this. How am I going to get off? And that, I think, what did I learn? I think I wasn't as robust as I thought I was, probably.
So here's something that I have found to be true. Joy comes in the morning. So many times in the middle of the night, we get into a state of mind where the demons come. And nothing is quite, what's the right word for it? When we're awake in the day, then our rational mind manages. But sometimes when we're drifting between being awake and asleep, then there's a reality that strikes, and it's not always a false reality, but there's a reality that strikes. I mean, it was a very real thought that you were having, right? And it's very real to you at the moment, but you got through. Some people say it's a dark night of the soul even, but you got through it, and the next morning, how did you feel?
Yeah, no, I just shook it off to dumb an idiot.
Well, right,
get
right.
On with it. So
does that inform the next time?
Yeah, I think it does, because when you're entrusted with leadership, and I'm someone who has a very high view of leadership. I think leadership is a privilege. I think it's an honor to lead. It's just a privilege.
Yes.
So I have a high view of that, and I have a high bar that I apply to myself and others around that. And so the fact that I'd allowed myself to toy with that in a tired, insecure moment, I didn't feel good about that. And I thought that you can't allow yourself, so I need to have much more positive self-talk, which for me, with my kind of, faith life, it is very much a prayer life. It's like, God, I just need your help here. I'm struggling here. I'm finding this really, really difficult. So I think it was, I could wrap it up in all sorts of psychobabble, but I think I just realized that in that moment, I wasn't as tough as I thought I was, or I'd hoped I was, or allowed myself to believe I was. Yeah, it was a unique environment. But I think the good news of the story is I didn't find a way off, and I didn't look for a way off. And we completed the gig, right? We got everyone to the end. We got everyone there in one piece. We walked to a place that so few people have walked on planet Earth. And there was this amazing moment. I tried to be kind of quite profound about it. I had this idea that we'd say, hey guys, look, here we are, we're standing at the top of the world. Every single thing that exists on planet Earth is beneath our feet at this moment. This unique moment.
Wow. Yeah.
So what promises are you going to make to that world? What commitment are you going to about? What kind of imprint, what impression are you going to leave? And I had this great view in my mind of this profound moment. But we've been standing there for about a minute. We're just freezing our nuts off. Okay, guys, sorry about let's get moving, because as long as you're moving, you can stay warm. But when you're standing still, that doesn't work. But people did have a little bit of time on their own, and I just remember looking into this newly iced bit of water. It was like 1 billion diamonds just shining with the sunlight, because it's 24-hour daylight. So it was a deeply spiritual moment, deeply spiritual. Just a sense of, on the one hand, the insignificance of who each of us is on this remarkable planet upon which we live, in this vast landscape that I found myself, and at the same time, how profound and precious and special we all are, all 7 billion of us, or what it was at the time, as we seek to kind of live out our life on that thing. It was it's kind of almost a paradox. There's a moment where of remarkable insignificance and significance, or an appreciation of that. I found it profoundly moving. And we're very, very privileged to have had the opportunity.
Well, I want to highlight one thing, that moment that you just described, which is amazing, right? That would not have happened had you not gone. You would have had other moments, other discoveries, other life experiences, but there's something about the going that brings those sorts of experiences and those sorts of memories, and they become a part of us.
Yeah, they do. They shape us. And I used to journal a lot more regularly in those days than I do now. But I remember some things I wrote around that, which were quite profound in terms of, who I am and who I'm becoming. Because I think we're always in a state of becoming as people. I'm 62 now. And I often think about what kind of 70-year-old am I going to be? What kind of grandfather am I going to be maybe one day? What kind of husband am I going to be when I'm 70? I'm going to give me one of these kind of miserable old gits that feels around feeling victim to whatever was going on. Or, am I still going to be going for it? Am I still going to be pushing it? And am I still going to be hungry? I hope it's the latter. I fear it might be the former, but I pray it's the latter. You just got to keep going, buddy. You just got to keep going. But I think the coolest, one of the coolest things about that was whether we raised a chunk of change. Obviously, like for the Kilimanjaro thing, we raised their money. We built what is now one of the best, if not the best, special needs schools in Uganda. We built a school, a 110-bedded school for children with hearing and speech impairment.
Wow.
From the moment that we broke ground, i.e. first shovel in the ground, to it being fully self-funding and fully self-sustaining, it was 7 years. And yeah, it's amazing, So we bought the land, they bought more land to grow food. They have an animal husbandry school there. They have vocational training skills there. The government pays for the teachers. It's extraordinary. Although we are not at evidence anywhere, because that's the whole point, we seek to be invisible in that, and we see hope. Many, many, many young lives have been transformed because of that. It was extraordinary, absolutely extraordinary, because of what those 15 people did, or those 18 people with the guides on the thing. And I think there's just something incredibly beautiful and precious about here's this privileged opportunity, like those of us going to Kilimanjaro, that we have as middle-class people to be able to do these fun things. Hey, but because of that, we were able to do this.
Wow,
hundreds of children's lives are different just because of that. As in many cultures around the world, children that can't speak or can't hear, people who find themselves with some kind of disability like that, they find themselves disregarded and set aside and ignored, or not in this school. It's extraordinary what some of the young people have gone on to. Absolutely extraordinary. It's amazing. Absolutely amazing. It's wonderful. It's in Masaka. So that was a really cool thing.
That is super neat. Let's talk about We See Hope. The organization, you and your wife started, how many years ago? Was it 15?
The organization we launched officially in 2000, 25 years ago.
Okay, 25 years.
We just actually had our 25th anniversary at the House of Lords in London, which was wonderful. Hosted by my dear brother, Russ, one of my brothers I go to the war for, Lord Rook as he is now. Yeah, 25 years ago, the organization was established as it is. But we actually started fundraising a couple of years before that. Because my wife and I had, it's just, I often think this, it's just, with this little middle-class couple in South London, 2 little kids. I met this little one in South Africa, HIV-positive toddler, been abandoned by her mother, fell in love with her, spent 20 minutes with her. She changed my life forever. And we ended up trying to adopt her into our family. At the end of that process, having spent 8 months going through that process, they found a biological grandmother existed. Because when you do a transracial adoption, they have to look for other family members to see if there's another family member. And so the biological grandmother was discovered, and she became her guardian. So we were pretty heartbroken, having prepared ourselves and our 2 little ones for another child to come. But we thought we need to do something. So again, forgive me, I hope it doesn't sound overly pious, whatever. We just made a promise to God and a promise to one another that, number one, we try and do something about this for the rest of our lives, and we won't ever get paid for it. We're just going to serve it. And number two, we'll do it anonymously and freely. We'll get this thing done till the day we die. As I often say, you come to my funeral, bring your wallet because there will be a collection. And and so we made those promises to each other and to God, and we spent the last 25 years trying to keep that promise. That's it. That's just our little story. And we did a lot of reflecting during the 25th anniversary thing. And people were so kind in the things they said. So kind. But it's just an ordinary little couple from West London just trying to keep a promise. That's it. And because there's some brilliant people got involved, because of all the brilliant people that got involved, it's made a big difference.
Well, it's important. When you find the thing that you value and you pour yourself into it in a way that positively impacts others, I think that is one of the secrets to a meaningful life. I've said this before, but 100%. People ask the question, what's the meaning of life? And I say that's a completely wrong question. The right question is, what gives life meaning? And what you and Wendy did, wow. Not just for your own lives, but for all the people that have supported the effort, for all of the children and others who were helped along the way. It's long enough now that some of these children have their own children, maybe even grandchildren, and 850,000?
A lot of people.
That's a lot of people, Phil. Talking about a big adventure.
But there's millions more that we've not yet helped that we need to help. And, it's wrong for me. I mean, the 2 people I think that have really built the organization alongside of Wendy and I was the guy that was CEO for 19 years, Mark Glenn, who had to retire through ill health last year. And then our Africa director, Oswald Mulunda, who lives in Dar in Tanzania. He's kind of our thought leader, really. He's the brains that's really kind of built the methodology on the ground that's so transformational. And then we have this new CEO, Steve Marigi, Kenyan guy, who's taken over this last year. Again, we stand on the shoulders of giants, right? We we are able to talk about the amazing things that have happened because of the work of other people. That's our great privilege. And I hope we do that well. I hope we honor people appropriately. But I mean, we had a little private moment, the two of us as a couple, after the celebration, thinking, it's really cool.
You deserve really that. Cool. You deserve that.
It was only a brief moment, but it was like, no, it's really cool. But we just, I hope organization, we're just getting warmed up, because there's millions and millions of more precious ones that need help and support and the opportunity that every single one of them deserves. And it's our job to try and work with people in country to make sure they get it.
Well, Phil, I want to reemphasize this. I really believe that life is the adventure, and we fail often, and it's okay to fail. We already talked about that, but we fail often to live that adventure to its fullest because of, fill in the blank, whatever it is. But it's just the willingness to step out and take the first step. Sometimes it opens the next door, and you don't know what that's going to be until you start that journey.
You don't, buddy.
Can you give an example of that, how that materialized with We See Hope?
Well, yeah, I can. A lot of it's just about risk. You either spend your life avoiding risk or you spend your life managing risk. That's it. You avoid it or you manage it. And I think,
and it's always there.
It's always there, because we could get hit by a car walking across the road. I hope this isn't a distraction to your podcast, but it is an interesting part of our story that we were brokenhearted, as I said, when we couldn't adopt the little one. And then we thought, we need to raise some money, but we were penniless. We didn't have any money, didn't have a house, didn't have anything. So just two little kids. So we had a few thousand, £7,000 saved. We were trying to save for a deposit for a house. I had this idea. I'd done a smaller version of it before. So we were running an event with the Salvation Army with 1,300 adults at it. So we put all our savings into an account, and I borrowed some money off some other people. And then at this event, we showed a video about the cause of AIDS orphans, which is the main focus at the time in Africa, then gave everybody an envelope. And inside the envelope was a £10 note and a book of fundraising ideas. And we said to the people, hey, look, you can do one of four things with this £10 note. Number one, you can give it back if you don't want to be involved. Number two, you can use your skills, your talents, your creativity, your family, your community, and try and turn £10 into £100. Or if you have the means, turn it £100 yourself, and try and turn £100 into £1,000. Parable of the talents, basically, from the Bible.
Right.
Or finally, if you think you need the money more than the kids in Africa on the video need the money, you can keep the money. We just want you to know it's not a company's money or a charity's money. It's our life saving. The money we've borrowed from other people that we're accountable for, we'd really appreciate it if you looked after it.
Wow.
So people go like, you want drugs? what are you doing? But anyway, but we just thought it was right. It was a creative thing to do. We had to do something. Someone interviewed me once and said, was it a big strategic thing? I said, no, it wasn't. I felt I let this little girl down, that I'd failed to adopt her. I felt I'd let her down terribly, and I'd failed her, and I just had to do something. I had to do something. So this is what we did. So anyway, over the next 6 months, that 13 grand was turned into 158 grand. And we're thinking, there's an idea. So I spoke to all my friends in the kind of wider kind of faith-based community who ran big events. I said, look, can I come to your events and give a whole bunch of people a whole bunch of money and see if they can create a return? I don't need your money. I don't want their money. I just want Craig's money. So I managed to borrow £500,000, £500,000 off some wealthy folks, and gave it out at a bunch of different events over 2.5 years to 50,000 people I didn't know. And that created £2.3 million profit. And that's how we got started.
That's amazing, Phil.
That's why we're where we are today. That's how we got started.
Some people, there are going to be so many different ways to spin that. There really are. But I'm going to spin it this way. You gave first. Yep. And you took significant personal risk. Now, other people would say, well, you guilt-tripped people into doing something about it. But let's hope that there wasn't any of that, right? It's more along the lines of, you've been given a beautiful gift. Just to live the life we live is a beautiful gift. And then the question becomes, what are we going to do with that gift?
It's the ultimate question. If we all ask that question on a daily basis, how do I use this gift that I've been given of life? How do I use that? That is it. And the interesting thing is, over the years, and we heard amazing stories at the time, people did the most amazing things, the most creative things to raise money. Most of them were legal. And, but it was a catalyst for creativity. I remember one young kid, 16-year-old, she collected first edition CDs. And so she bought 4 clock mechanisms and backed them on the CDs and made CD clocks. And then she bought 4 more, and she bought more. She made £675 from her CD clocks. People did all sorts of other events, sales. People made albums and sold them. Some of the albums really shouldn't have been made. But anyway, they were made and they sold them. I remember there was a military guy, an admiral of a ship. He painted a painting and he auctioned it for £1,000. People just didn't make the most amazing, but it was a what we found. It was a catalyst for creativity
Sure.
that people went and did stuff, and people adopted kids for goodness sake. It was the adoption story that they got hold of, and they went and adopted kids from different countries around the world.
Wow.
We had other people set up non-profits. He said to me, and this is a London accent, so he had an accent like mine. See, in our country, this is a bit of a commoner's accent. The counter says, "Hello, mate." She said, "Are you the geezer that gave me £10?" I said, "Yes, I am." I said, "That's me." He said, "I was thinking I'd give you one of my cars." And I'm thinking, "Oh, great, some clapped out Ford.
Right.
It's going to cost us £200 to go pick up." DB6 Aston Martin.
My word.
Exactly, which we sold at auction, obviously. So people did the most amazing things, and we're trying to capture some of those stories so we can tell those stories over this next year or so. But I think you asked the question. Well, I had no idea if that was going to work.
Right.
I had no idea. We felt compelled because we were probably still grieving, in all honesty. We felt convicted because we made a promise, and you got to keep your promises, right? I just thought it was a really cool, creative idea. We gave people the option to give it back, and no one would have known they gave it back. But it's just the funniest thing. I mean, we were on holiday a couple of years later on a campsite in the middle of nowhere in England, and this couple who camped next to us, they said, "Are you the couple that gives out £10 notes?" and I was on a train one day, and there's a young guy sitting opposite me. He's reading a business book that I'd read, and I did some teaching off in a work, so we're talking about it. He said, "Excuse me," I said, "Can I ask you a question?" I said, "Sure." He says, "Your name's Phil Wall." I said, "But yes, it is." He said, "Oh, you £10?" He said, "I always meant to do something with it, but I just didn't ever get round to it. I'm so sorry." I said, "Well, make a donation, whatever." So that was, I think the biggest thing as we look back on it was I think particularly for my wife, was the decision to adopt an HIV positive toddler.
Right.
The first time she was going to meet her was the day we were going to go pick her up in Africa.
Wow.
And raise her amongst her two other little babies. If you want to ask me what was a brave and ballsy call, that would have been it. That was her commitment. And I'm in awe of that woman at times, just at what she's willing to do once she believes it's the right thing to do. And I think after that initial decision, it was, well, let's just put it on, let's just see what happens. And again, we people like us, our kind of faith conviction is, there's a verse in the Psalm says that the earth is the Lord's and everything in it. And if you see yourself not as an owner, but a steward, if you see yourself as someone whose job is not to possess, but to look after and invest, kind of changes the frame a little bit. I mean, don't get me wrong. At that time, £7,000 was every single cent we had. So was I anxious? Absolutely. Did I have a few of those 3:30 in the morning days? Absolutely.
Sure.
Yes. But the cool thing? I hope he wouldn't mind me telling, so I won't say who it was. So we didn't take the money back. We just left it in there and everything else. And we said, okay, we'll figure out the house thing. And a friend of mine that I'd done some work with, he said to me once, he said, "Phil, whenever you and Wendy want to buy a house, come see me." And I said a little while later, it says in the early 2000s, we found a house because I've been in tired accommodation, so we need to find our own accommodation. I went to see him. I said, "Hey, look, that time has come. You mentioned it." He said, we need to borrow some money. I said, "Yeah, how much do you need?" I said, "Well, actually, we need $25,000. This is in the early 2000s. So I said, do you think we could borrow the money?" And I'm sitting in his, in his nice office in London. He said, "No." He said, "You can't." So I was really embarrassed. I didn't want to say it. I thought he said, no. He said, "You can't borrow it." He said, "If you receive it as a gift, you can have it, but you can't borrow it." Gave us our deposit for our first house.
Wow.
The way these things work, right?
Amazing.
That's our experience. Well, again, amazing, kind, generous people. I no word of it like I say, you will be one of them. I spend a lot of my life just saying thank you to people because they're so kind to us, so kind to the cause. We have been the recipients of amazing kindness from people over the years. And I hope people that have given that, but we have certainly been recipients of it. I was a policeman, going to say, I know what cynicism feels like. I know what cynicism tastes like.
Yeah.
But it is the luxury of the inactive. It's no use to anybody, cynicism. It's no use to anybody. So that was that's the first thing that came to mind anyway when you asked that question.
Wow.
That was our little story.
Well, Phil, it's a beautiful story. And I want to mention We See Hope is the name of the humanitarian organization, the charity that's making this difference in Africa. I want to thank you and Wendy and everyone who's given so much to make it possible, because not that I'm in a position to give thanks because I haven't done it yet, but I will say this. My heart goes out to the people in need around the world and to meet people like yourself who've dedicated so much energy and time, risk and faith, to do what you can do. That's an adventurous life and a life well lived and an example for the rest of us. So I want to say thank you. I'm going to put the link in the show notes if people want to be a part of this effort so that they can do it. And by the way, if you haven't heard, Phil and I are in January attempting to climb Kilimanjaro.
We carry each other up that hill, buddy. We'll drag our carcasses up that hill. We'll definitely get it done.
The plan is for every participant to raise $20,000 each for We See Hope. And if we pull it off, the goal was 15 of us, that would be $300,000.
It would be.
And that is fantastic. So we're on our way, and that's what we're doing. And Phil, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing how to live a truly adventurous life.
We were very kind. If I missed the one thing, firstly, thank you so much for giving me the privilege to be involved in this. And I look forward to talking more as we pull our backsides up that hill. But just important everyone knows, every single one of us is paying our own way. There is no money that they give that goes to getting us on that. So every single cent they give goes straight to the cause. Doesn't go anywhere near us, nor our opportunity. We've paid for that all ourselves.
Yeah, that's important. That's important.
It is.
I appreciate that. Yeah. All right,
thank you for
Phil.
sharing your adventure with me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Oh, you bet. It's my pleasure. Everyone out there, I don't know what your life adventure is, and I say this every show, but this time I'm saying it with a little bit more magnitude. It's not just get out there and have some fun. It's figure out your life's adventure and go live it and enjoy it.
Go get it done.
Yeah,
go get it
absolutely.
done. If you're not living on the edge, as they say, you're taking up too much room. Go get it done.
I love it. That's great. All right. Take care.
Cheers, buddy. God bless. Thank you so much.